welcome to my YouTube channel. This video is really going to literally talk about this review of this movie. I've been meaning to see this movie last year, but then I forgot about it. Unfortunately, and in a good way, the legal case and the issues that have been going on between Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively got my attention again. So, a couple of weeks ago, I became a proper Candace Owens fan because she's done, like a British person would say, us British people, she's done a bloody good job. Candace Owens has exposed all the stuff that's going on between these two characters, who are the main characters in this movie. I kind of got wind of it and I thought, right, it seems like this movie is trending now because of this case that's going on. And I've been looking for a movie to watch and it kind of just fell on my laps. And it's approximately 2 hours and 11 minutes. And I watched it on Amazon Prime. And halfway into this movie, I'm already crying. I'm tearing up. I'm someone that if I watch a movie, I don't like to cry. But it was so difficult not to cry because it was just such an emotional tearjerker. And as we know, the theme behind this book by Colleen Hoover is a story about someone, a lady, that fell in love in this whirlwind romance and found herself in a DV situation. I could relate to this movie because some aspects of this movie brought back like memories, and it was like a trigger response that just got a fire burning inside of me and made me kind of feel like I need to talk about this movie. So it starts off with the characters behind Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. It was all centered around, this romance that started at the beginning. And as soon as I was watching the scene where, in this movie, where, let's have a look. I'm just gonna kind of try to remember. Okay, so Ryle played by Justin Baldoni was Blake Lively's lover in the movie, and Blake played Lily Bloom. Lily Bloom's character was centered around Colleen Hoover's mom. It was actually Colleen Hoover's take on what her mom went through in her own DV marriage. And I think the nice thing about this book, because it came out in 2015 or 16, and the book was really trending on TikTok at this time, but the movie only came out last year. Now, so Ryle and Lily kind of got into this relationship. I think the first red flag was when they met on the rooftop. I was like, why would you want to kiss a stranger? Like, it's absurd to even think that you met someone on the roof that just kicked a chair angrily, and you're already like feeling like you want to get close to them. So that happened. Lily, played by Blake Lively in this movie, will push Ra's character, played by Justin Baldoni, away all the time, push him off and everything. And then we get to the scene where she starts this flower shop, and she got someone that comes in to help her, who happens to be Ryle's sister in the movie. They became best friends, and eventually Ryle and Lily in the movie have this relationship. It started off really nice and innocent. It was sweet and pure. Lily wouldn't give in to sleeping with Ryle in the first few encounters until she felt like she tested and probing him well enough. Now, a couple of minutes into the movie, we have this first instance where Ryle hits Lily, but it was covered under the presumption of an accident because whilst he was trying to get the dish out of the oven, his hand got really hot, and as she was going round to help him, he flung the dish on the floor and his hand hits her face. So it kind of takes Lily back to when she was a child and she witnessed her dad being abusive to her mum, and it just starts to bring back some memories. If I were Lily at this point, I would have left. But a lot of times, DV survivors stay in relationships like this because we feel like we love this person and this person loves us. But I think the story or the point of this whole review is, what I realized about love is that it never hurts. So if someone is in a relationship with someone and you're feeling like they're constantly hurting you, Now, it depends on if it's become a habit. If it's something that they do consistently and they're not willing to look at their own behaviors or actions, then there's an issue there, because it means that you're probably going to put yourself in a position where you're giving them a pass to act that in that way, which isn't right. So that scene ends where, Lily was accidentally hit by Ryle, and Ryle passed it off as it was just an accident. Kate believed him the first time. Lily stays because she loves him. She's starting to fall in love with him, starting to get used to him being around. Now it opens up to where they now go to this restaurant, and Lily meets this guy that she had something to do with in the past when they were teenagers. They run into each other. It wasn't a reconnection or rekindle of any romance or anything like that. It was just more of a reconnection with an old friend. Ryle knows none the better. He didn't catch a whiff of anything. There was a second incident now when they were in the house, and Ryle got upset about something, and Lily gets into another DV situation now where her head was bleeding. Ryle, being a neurosurgeon or a doctor, knew what to do, so he laid her back and, got her back to consciousness, and she's awake and she's thinking what just happened. And he says, oh, it was just an accident again. Now for me, after the whole love bombing phase, and he got Lily to start to love him, he's now excusing his bad behaviors, but he's not acknowledging that probably something needs to change, or I need to look into my behavior. I always like to think of abusers when it becomes a pattern of behavior where the other person is not willing to change, or they're not looking at their own input into how the situation has deteriorated, then that is a big, massive red flag. Ryle passes off the fact that she's hurting and she's bleeding as it was just another accident. And I'm thinking, I don't think that should be the case. Well, we move on now on this scene, and they go back to this restaurant, and Lily wasn't really keen on going back to this restaurant because she knew that she'd seen the person that she really had, she loved while she was a teenager, and she didn't feel like she wanted to reconnect with this person. So in the movie, it kind of gives you some flashbacks of some scenes that will give you a better understanding. But eventually, Ryle catches wind of what's happening, and he gets very pissed off, right? He goes towards where they were having the conversation. So Lily and Atlas, who was her teenage lover, were having a conversation, and Ryle catches wind of it, and there was a huge fight that broke out. Lily was really upset by this because Ryle got really aggressive, and they had to leave that restaurant because Atlas, though you would have thought he was something else, he actually owned that restaurant. So they leave the restaurant, and after a while, Lily kind of speaks to Ryle about his behavior, and he apologizes, saying that he didn't realize how much DV she'd witnessed between her parents when she was a lot younger, and he didn't realize that this person, Atlas, was one of the people that helped her to come out of it. So we skip a few scenes, and then I think the one that really kind of got me was when so Lily was doing really well with her flower shop, her flower business, and she was named in the magazine for the city as the top 7 new businesses starting in the city that she was living in. Sorry, top 10 businesses starting in the city that she was living in, and she was named as number 7. And guess who came out as number 1? It was the ex-lover restaurant, Atlas's restaurant. So she starts to have concerns that if her boyfriend, Riley, sees this article, he's going to be a bit jealous. Now, another thing that comes to mind is people that are abusive, a lot of the times they have a lot of insecurity. They feel that they don't, or they're not deserving of whoever it is that they're in a relationship with. So they try to do things to maintain control over that relationship. By maintaining control, they would demand that they see your phone. They demand that they be there all the time. they demand that you be loyal to them. I feel like if someone is secure in themselves, I don't need to put in so much work to always reassure you that I love you and that I'm always there for you. But we find that in this movie that Lily puts herself in a position, a lot of the times, consciously or unconsciously, where she's having to reassure Riley that she loves him, it's him that she's chosen, she's not choosing this other guy, that he doesn't have anything to worry about. But the major red flag that I always saw was when she always had to reassure someone. She always had to reassure Riley of her love for him, but he was never convinced about it. And then you see some scenes in the movie where he just gets extremely jealous and his entire demeanor changes and it just looks so angry and so scary. Now, on this day that she was named as number 7, Riley gets back from surgery and she's preparing dinner. He gets a magazine and he congratulates her, saying, "Look, babe, well done. You came up as number 7 as top new business in Boston." And then he goes and he skips over it and he's thinking, actually, I want to talk about another issue. And he skips over to her ex-lover, ranking of number 1. And you could see the whole tone changes where he starts to get really aggy, really agitated about a certain piece that he's read in that article. Lily constantly says she doesn't want to talk about this article and all of that in that scene. I don't want to give you too much because I'm just going to spoil it for you. But I could see and I could already sense how this movie was going, because now this guy is getting so crazy. Like, he's not listening to her. He's not respecting her wish to not talk about this article. She's constantly still reassuring him in that moment that she loves him. There's nothing that he needs to worry about. He's referring to a tattoo that she's got that has to do with the article and all these things. And he just starts to get really forceful. So where they started to get into this thing, she then had to step away from him for a while. But Lily's like, no, she's not interested. Maybe they can do it later because she's made dinner. She doesn't want the dinner to get cold. He's not listening. And then he leaves a physical mark on her body where he's been like really aggressive. And she had to push him away and run out of that house. Luckily, she makes it to her car. She goes back to the only person in that city, that's New City, that she only knew, who was her ex teenage lover. And this person reassures her that everything will be fine. And he was just there for her. Now, the whole thing, it was like a breath of fresh air, because this person was always there and consistent and was never really forceful. You could see that Atlas was always very nice and gentle and kind. Always gave her a window to think about her options. He never really pushed her to make a decision when she wasn't ready. And you could just sense the difference in the characters between Riley and Atlas. And you could see that Riley at the start of the whole love, where they went through the love bombing phase, and now they're in the value phase where he's starting to maltreat her and, make her feel less than herself and hit her and all those kind of things. You see that there's a whole dynamic and the whole shift where Atlas then comes in, and Atlas is more like, I'm always here for you. There's always an arm for you to cry on, is giving her that window that if she needs somewhere or someone to be there to support her, he's always there for her. So much more different from her actual current boyfriend. So she goes over and she stays with Atlas for some time. She goes and also gets checked medically because of the incident that happened. And then she finds out that she's pregnant with a child. She wasn't expecting that. So Atlas just acts as a reassuring voice that everything will be fine. If you choose to have this baby, just know that that baby is going to be so lucky to call you mum because you're fantastic and great. Just reassuring her that everything will be okay. And I think from that time alone that she spent with Atlas, she was able to regain her self-confidence. This is another thing about being in a domestic violence or abusive relationship. You spend so much time with this other person, you lose a sense of who you actually are. You spend so much time with this other person, you constantly always say yes to their wants, even though you know that it's not going to serve you well in the long term. most times people that are in this kind of relationships also forget their voice. They forget what it feels like to think about what they want and what their own needs and desires are. Because most times people like that shut themselves, they shut their own voice, intuition down because they want to always please this other person. So they forget what it means to just even be there for themselves. I feel like in this movie, her ex-teenage lover, Atlas, gives her this chance to regain her voice, regain her self-confidence, have some time and a break away from that toxic relationship to be able to reassess what she really wanted for herself. So we find out that later in the movie, Lily then goes on to get time and spend some time away by herself. There were times where she would reminisce that, it would have been nice if her boyfriend, who she then got married to, I forgot that bit. They got married, and then they probably, and it was a quick marriage. It wasn't a marriage where a family were involved or anything like that. It was I would like to get married to you now, so I'm gonna drop down on one knee. We're gonna get married. I'm gonna go and do it the next day. It was these kinds of dysfunctional, toxic, abusive relationships. They kind of make things go really quite quick. So a lot of the times you find out that you don't have time to pause and sit back and assess where you are in these kinds of relationships. These kind of relationships, they move so fast that you don't even realize that you're being pulled into something that is going to be detrimental to you at the end of the day. And we noticed that when she'd signed on the dotted line and she signed to a new level of commitment, Riley's behaviors escalated. So going back to when she then moved out and she got her own place, she obviously, having been in a relationship with her ex-boyfriend now, who's a surgeon, Riley, she would often reminisce and think about how easier it would have been if he was around. But she'd known that could not be an option. So she shakes off that thought and just carries on with her life. Now, when this baby was born is when she now asked officially to Riley she wants to go. I think that was the best decision that she could have made at that point, because if she had stayed any longer in that relationship with the trajectory of the way things were going, I don't think it would have gotten any better. Even though he promised to get help, even though he promised to change, there was no real form in holding him accountable to what he had said he would do, because he was now not making any unconscious efforts to make that change happen. So I think the best decision that Lily could have made in that movie and in Colleen Hoover's book was to say she's leaving that relationship and saying that it ends with us. And that's where that phrase, the title of the book, was coined from. And I was so happy that she made that decision. She was even backed by Riley's sister, who happens to be a best friend, that there were so much more issues there than she could even imagine. And it was amazing to see that she was able to stand on her own 2 feet. She said all the goodbyes that she needed to say to all the past people in her life, in her relationship. And she was able to move forward with her sister, with her daughter, and also with her mom. And we see that, because I always like a soppy, sweet story. We see at the end that she, established her business. I think she threw a lot of her weight into that business and also in taking care of her child. And I always like to think that love happens when it happens. You can't force love to happen. It would just naturally happen. And I was a lovely, sappy story at the end. And we see that she actually reconnects with Atlas, her teenage lover. And the beautiful thing about that movie was that I think there was a scene where Atlas gave her that option to say, look, if there was ever a chance in your heart that you're free to love someone again, I am here for you. You can always love me. Oh my God, that was beautiful, because I just saw it as Atlas never forced anything on Lily. He always gave her that opportunity to think about what she wanted for herself. It wasn't a thing where she was being love bombed or she was constantly being pestered with gifts and flowers and, the usual elements of people that abuse people in relationships. And it was just so pure and so sweet, and it was just so authentic and it was so raw to see how, and the movie was so great because in one movie you could see the contrast between what a toxic relationship looks like from the start to the end and what like a healthy, stable relationship looks like. Between Riley and Atlas, you could tell that Riley was a bit more unstable. There were days that, you know, you get good out of him. There are days that they were not so good out of him. You could also sense that he lacked the ability to have emotional connections with people. That's one of the things that he'd said at the start, where he was confessing to Lily that he'd never been in a relationship, that he normally just goes into, he just has flings and he's never able to commit to relationships because he's closed his heart to being in a relationship. How can you even be in a relationship if your heart is constantly closed? So that's why when Riley and Lily got into this relationship, I was really questioning if it was going to last, because he's someone that already did not have the cadence or even like a baseline of what a good relationship should be. So it was almost like Lily was putting herself in a position where she was going to be used as a lab rat for this person that was already emotionally unstable to kind of figure out what he wants or how he wants to be in a relationship. I always say life is too short. Like, if someone is giving you vibes that they're not going to be there for you emotionally, they're going to be like unavailable, they're going to emotionally neglect you, that's a good enough sign to think about what you really want out of a relationship and if this person is going to be a good candidate. On the other hand, Atlas was more stable, he was more reliable, and he seemed, although he didn't have as much of a long time span in this movie, you could sense from the start already that he was someone that was always going to, he was like an oak, he was like a rock, someone that you could always rely on and count on, and he gives what he really, really truly is. He wasn't someone that had this facade in public where he was one way and then behind closed doors he was another way. And I really like the movie because it ended on a good note, and it brought to the surface the issue that a lot of people probably struggle to talk about, and that's the issue around DV and domestic violence and abuse, and what abusive relationships really look like. I normally like to read books, but I thought, honestly, if I'd known that this book had come out, I would have bought this book to read, but I never really thought to read the book. And since the movie was out, I thought I'll give it a go, and it's such a good movie. I think it was executively produced by Colleen Hoover as well. So, I mean, big shout out to the team. They did a really good job in bringing these issues to the surface. I know a lot of people that have read the book might think that some scenes were missing or it didn't bring us much of the DV elements to the surface. But I think for the purpose of on-screen viewing of mainstream, I think it covered well enough in 2 hours and 11 minutes what should be in a movie. I've read some books in the past and they've had movies, and I know being someone that has read the book, I can see that some parts of those books or the book was missing in the movie. So if you think that some parts were missing in the movie, I think give me a comment down below. I'd like to see what your thoughts are. I'm also thinking about doing more reviews like this on like fictional, non-fictional books on this channel. So if you want to see me review any particular book, let me know. Comment down below, and I'm more than happy to have a look myself and see what I can bring around. I think in summary, this movie kind of did a good enough job to bring DV issues to the surface, and it just gives you a timeline of how these abusive relationships progress from the meeting phase to the love bombing phase, to the devalue phase and the discard phase. But the good thing I think from my own perspective about this movie is that Lily, the main character in the movie, was not discarded by her abuser, but rather she left him, so that relationship did not deteriorate to so far beyond the point of restoration and reconciliation for Lily and her child. And Lily was able to find true love in the end. So if there's anyone out there that's going through any form of abusive relationship, know that there's a lot of help out there, and there's so many resources to help you navigate this really difficult and painful part of your life, and know that there's light at the end of the tunnel. There's no season in life that remains the same. Just like we don't have summer all the time, we don't have winter all the time, we don't have spring all the time, neither do we have autumn or fall. There are always times, and the seasons in life will always change. And I want to encourage you to always look forward to what the new season will be that brings to your life. And yeah, thank you for listening to me rant about this movie. I think it was just, really touched me because I could relate to some of the very, very detailed scene in this movie, and really triggered a lot of emotions out of me. I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Ow, 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 ow. I'm going to do a long form video. Ooh, girl.